Yeah, I see the screen recording is on. Okay, guys, before I jump on with the session, quick question or knowledge check. How many of you can tell me what is the full form for the acronym Slack, or is there a full form for the acronym Slack? Any ideas? I'm just looking at the chat screen. If you want, you can put it in the chat screen your answers. Okay, fine. I'll share my screen. So, entire screen. I'll share. Yes, yes, Shravan, Sagar. Yeah, you guys are correct. Okay. Mm, all right. So, what is Slack? Now, Slack is an acronym that was coined for searchable log of all conversation and knowledge. Now, Slack, as we know today, did not start like this. Slack started like a conversation API or a application way back in 2009. That time when Slack started, it started as it was known as Tiny Talk, Tiny Spec, and this was started by four guys based out of Vancouver, British Columbia, in 2009, and until 2014 it was called Tiny Spec. But then in 2014, uh, during that time Microsoft was uh, moving from your communicator to link, and all those things were happening, and a lot of people were not very happy. The enterprise was not happy with the transitions that were happening over there. There were other mediums for communication, but when I say communication, within organization communications, at an enterprise level. But then a lot of people started utilizing this application called Tiny Spec. And once in 2014, when they went on at an enterprise scale, they termed it or coined the word Slack, again standing for searchable log of all communication and conversation and knowledge. Now, from 2014 until 2021, Slack was a say a separate entity, but then in 2021, Salesforce acquired Slack. Now, if you see the numbers, they acquired Slack for 27.7 billion, and at that time, it was one of the major and most expensive acquisitions Salesforce had done. So they have done a lot of acquisitions, but even till date, that stands as one of the top three acquisitions that Salesforce has done. Now, coming to Slack interactions, right? Now, when we talk about Slack interactions, there are multiple ways you can interact with Slack. One I would start with is an interactive component. What is this? It's like adding buttons to your web pages. You've seen share it on website. There's an icon or there's a tab that is a button that is available. These are similar buttons that can add that can be added to your website as buttons, and these will interact with your Slack and your web page interactively. Whenever a person clicks on the button, the messages will be posted over here in Slack, right? The second one is slash command. Now, what is a slash command? uh, it's more of an automation way of getting things done. Again, I'll come to this. I'm just giving an overview. uh, it's an automation way of getting things done at whenever a user wants uh, on demand. So if you want something on demand to be done and you don't want to get into the nitty gritties of the technical stuff, you can use a slash command. The third one is a webhook. Again, even in webhook, it is more of an asynchronous sort of interaction that you can have with Slack. And again, this is on, say, on a specific event that occurs. But again, this is another, you can say, semi asynchronous, Why I said something asynchronous is when I speak about webhooks in detail, I'll let you know why. And the third one is event subscription. Now, event subscription is an event trigger. It's more on the event driven architecture. I mean, we've heard about a lot of event driven architecture in the last couple of years, right? Quite a lot of messaging organizations, for that matter, even Salesforce is talking a lot about event driven architecture. Now, event subscriptions is another one which is following the event driven architecture. Whenever there's a specific event that happens in Slack, uh, you get notified, or you trigger something, or you trigger a process. Now, these are the four ways you can interact with Slack. Along with, you have your MuleSoft Slack connector, which is out of the box connector provided by MuleSoft itself. Now, out of these five, you see there are bots as well. Now, why is bot mentioned as a part of Slack interaction? The reason is every way you interact with Slack using this application, whether it be a webhook or a slash command or an event subscription, they work with bots behind the scene. Bots is nothing but a small piece of program or a small application that runs that will, you know, do the work on your behalf. It's more of a federated way of getting things done. You type a slash command, you will see on your Slack app a specific bot name. Now that bot is used to run the job on Slack. Now why permissions is important? Bot needs specific permissions to do specific tasks. I mean, it's natural, right? Whenever you're doing something at an enterprise scale, you would not give open permissions to anybody and everybody who's logged into the system. There has to be restrictions, there has to be authentication and authorization, there has to be permissions that is provided for each and every user or user like bots to do or achieve a certain task. Any questions over here before I move on? I mean, there's a lot of, in depth I'll go, but then if you have any questions, I can take one. Okay, I don't see anything. All right. Uh, when we interact with Slack, right? The first thing is you have to create a Slack app. Now, any interaction with Slack would not work without a creation of a Slack app. That's the step one, or rather a step zero. Now, where is the Slack app created? This Slack app is created in a portal called api.slack.com. Okay. Now you log into your api.slack.com with your credentials. You would get a place where you can create a Slack app. I'll show you those demos as well in the demo section. But so when you create a Slack app, the first thing that you would see is on the left hand side. Let me just put on the highlighter. Okay. So the first thing you see is this box, create a Slack app. Now there are two options the way you can create a Slack app. One is from a scratch, and the one is using Manifest. Now coming to the Manifest first, it is more of a automated way wherein you know what different things or different configurations you want to have in your application or your Slack app. You create a JSON file or or a YML file, and you create that app. So this is an advanced function for people who are very well versed with the different what do you call it? The different properties of a Slack application. If you are a person who creates Slack apps day in day out, knows his or her way around how to create an app, this is a much faster way, much geekier way to create. You can use this for automations as well. Now, people like me or you or somebody else who's not so used to creating Slack apps every single day, they give you to create from scratch. So when you create from scratch, it'll give you two options. One is create your app name and to which workspace you want to create. That's it. These two piece of information you've given, you create a Slack app. Nothing else is required. Everything else can be configured after the app is created. Here in the manifest, even while creating, you can configure this entire Slack app up to your choice. It is at build time or at creation time. Here, after the creation of the fact, after the creation of an app, you can, modify your application as per your requirement, right? Now, coming to this. Now, once your app is created, right, you would see, again, I created this app yesterday, and you would see an app ID, you would see a client ID, client secret. Now, this client ID and client secret is very important when you are working with your OAuth authentication. Now, there's a piece I've highlighted over here. If you are working with your Slack connector, you will have to use the OAuth.v2. You will not be allowed to use OAuth v1 with Slack app. It is always OAuth v2 for access. Now, when you are doing this, you will require your client IDs and client secrets. That's your first and foremost. This comes in the when you click inside the app, there's an app home or app details. There you would find these client IDs and client secrets. Now you see a signing secret. Now, why is this important? Uh, as we said that we'll be sending messages through slash message or events, right? Now, whenever you are sending out a message out of Slack to some other system, in the HTTP headers, you would get something called a Slack signature. It's a HMAC signature that Slack sends, right? Now, using this Slack signing secret and couple of other parameters, you can generate a signature and validate with the signature that comes into your what do you call the HTTP header, and then you validate whether the message that is coming in from Slack is the actual message that is being sent or from Slack or not, right? One second. All right. Okay, I missed verification token. Now, verification token also used to work as like your Slack signature, but then it was the older way of doing things or validating your requests. Today, Slack has deprecated verification tokens, and it recommends the usage of signing secret rather than verification tokens. Now, coming to this slash command, right? I said I'll discuss more about this. Now, what is a slash command? Suppose, uh, let me think. Okay, you have a business user, right? Now, the business user, say, expects a certain set of invoices that should be received by him, say, every Friday, 10 p.m. A hypothetical scenario, right? Now, how does this message come in? I mean, these files come into him. It comes to him via Mulesoft. You say the Mulesoft has some processing, and then it drops the files in an SFTP location, which your business user can access to see the invoice bills, right? That's a pretty simple business use case that you can have. Now, assume yesterday night, I'm a business user. I went to the SFTP location and I don't see any invoice bills over there. Now, end of the week, I don't see any invoices. I have to get them processed before Monday so that Monday I can send it for payments. What do? I connect with the MuleSoft team, the technical team. I say, guys, I don't see any invoices, but in the on the CRM screen, I see the people have raised invoices. What's gone wrong? Your MuleSoft team does some research and figures out that there's some trigger that somehow did not fire for some reason, and because of which your MuleSoft application did not get triggered and your invoices were not sent to your SFTP location. What do? Either there has to be a way wherein MuleSoft technical folks rerun the application, or there is a remediation way wherein either the business user or one of your Mulesoft ops guys can re-trigger. Now, if the business has to re-trigger, say I'm the business guy, if I have to re-trigger, it is not possible for me to understand the nitty-gritties of MuleSoft or any other middleware technology to go check the logs, do this, do that, XYZ. Not possible. I would say not done, not for me. You tell me a simple way how I can trigger your application. That's where this slash command comes into picture. We would say, okay, we will create an app, a Slack app for you. This in this Slack app, I would configure something called a slash command. Now, a slash command is always prefixed with a forward slash, not a backward slash. Now, you go to this channel, you put a forward slash, and you just give this command, like I've configured over here, play with slash. Now, while configuring this slash command, I have to mention my MuleSoft request URL, which means when I hit this command, invariably the bot behind the scene will trigger a request to your MuleSoft endpoint. For me, as a business user, it's invisible. I don't care what it happens. All I know is I just go to Slack app, I put this command, done. And this should trigger my MuleSoft API or application, which would do the necessary processings and give me the invoices in my SFTP location. Period. If you think from a business perspective, all I have to do is 8 p.m. Friday night. Okay, there are no invoices. I just go check the CRM. Has there been any invoices that have been generated? If it is yes, and if there is no invoices, first thing I do is come here on Slack, put this command, enter. If things are good and somehow the trigger did not had not triggered or did not work, I'm supposed to get the messages in my file, in my SFTP location. Else there is a problem. Then you obviously have to involve your technical team or your middleware team to figure out what's gone wrong. But it's a very basic thing of the business users having the power to re-trigger a business transaction through a technical standpoint. You just give a slash command. I'll stop here. Anybody, any questions? Vandana, if there's any question on the chat, or wait, let me only have a look.
No, no,
No.
there is not.
Okay, then I'll go on to the next one. Okay, there's one more thing. I didn't say over here. What does this line say? Escape channels, users, links sent to your app. What it means is, suppose people who like us who've already used Slack, you can do at the rate so and so. Even in WhatsApp, you can do at the rate your friend's name. Now, when you write at the rate, you write a command play with slash and then give an at the rate, say user. If this is not escaped, when the message is posted on your Slack channel, it will come as slash play with slash space the username. Else, if it is the checkbox is checked or it is escaped, it would come as play with slash space the user ID of the Slack user who's triggered this command. That's what it means. So if there is a channel, if you're giving hash channel or at the rate channel, at the rate user, whenever you are escaping anything, it gives you the ID, the Slack ID behind the scenes in the Slack app on your channel. Otherwise, it will give your name over there. That's the only usage of this part. Okay, coming to Slack webhooks. Now, I go there. Anybody wants to take a dig at what's a webhook and how is it different from an API? Try it. Can we switch on the mics for people?
Yeah, sure.
Vandana?
Yeah, I'll do.
Yeah, maybe it'll be easier for people to say what's the difference between an API and a webhook. Guys, anybody want to take a dig? What's an API? What's a webhook? It need not be very technical, just a general knowledge. Somebody wants to try? Okay. Uh, well, APIs and webhooks are similar, but again different. API is an API. Webhook is a reverse API. It's straightforward and that complicated. What's a reverse API? Now, a simple API is one in which the consumer sends a request to the server requesting for data. However, the server has to respond with a positive or a negative feedback. Say a negative response, either errors or uh, what do you call a success response or an error response, right? Whereas in webhook, a consumer will never send a request, but to have a webhook behind the scenes, you have to have an API. You cannot have a webhook without an API. It's like you have a direct hotline connection to your API, which is always open for you. You just come in, drop a message. Uh, if I give you a real time scenario, I'm not sure how many of you guys have seen the world of Nokia and Motorola, wherein we had those, keypad phones with the green screen. Back in, late 2010s, 2009, 8, when Nokia was on the boom, there was something, a concept called flash message, wherein, say, you have a flood alert or a fire alert or a heat wave weather condition alert. You would not get a message, you would not get emails. Rather, there would be a message flashing on your screen: heat wave alert, flash flood alert, and so on and so forth. So there was a specific line always open to your mobile application screen, to which your network service provider will push a message directly and it would flash on your screen. So that's the concept of webhook. And webhooks have been there in the system for a long, long time. It's just that it's gained a lot of popularity these days because of the latest technologies realizing the actual potential of webhook. So that's what is a webhook is. It's an open hotline connection for you, wherein you don't request for something, you don't expect something, you just push the message. It's more of a push messaging system. Behind the scenes, there's an API. Now, then you might say, if that's the case, why do I need to have an API and not a webhook? Now, architecturally, a webhook is for more of a callback functionality or a notification for functionality. Webhooks should never be used for transferring any PII data, PHI data, medical records, insurance records, legal records. Anything that is sensitive should never be passed via webhooks. The security levels of a webhook is always lower compared to a API. Always. Yes, you can have SSL encryption, you can have certain set of authentications, but still, even in spite that, webhooks are less secure compared to your APIs. So remember, whenever you are working with webhooks in your real-time projects, never ever send sensitive data via webhooks. Yes, if you want to send a happy birthday message, feel free to send it via webhooks. There's nothing sensitive. If you want to, send some notifications, alerts, send it via webhooks. No problems. Suppose, okay, I'll give you a business use case. Again, suppose you're working. on a with a very big firm who have mainframes, right? Now, mainframes, as we know, they do all the batch processings after business hours. That is the time where real time processings don't happen. The mainframes are down for batch processing because they, process data in millions, say 50 million, 150 million, 300 million. That time, the mainframes will not work on any real time data, but they'll work on batch data. Now, say, suppose your mainframe is processing 3 million invoices for the day. Now, every vendor has sent at least one or multiple invoices to you via your API, your Mulesoft API, for it to get processed, right? Now, what happens is you get the API via your invoice via your API. You send back the response to your consumer that, okay, I have received your API. We will notify you once processing is complete. Obviously, you'll have to wait for the end of the day for the mainframes to start processing your invoices. Once your invoice processing is ready, your mainframe generates a report and sends to you, these are the invoices that have been processed successfully. These invoices are the ones that have failures because of certain reasons. Now, every successful invoice that has come in from a specific vendor can be notified via webhooks. You don't need to, again create an API call and request, okay, do you want to know about your invoice processing? And they say yes or no based on that. No, have a webhook, push the data, your invoice number so and so has been processed successfully or has errored out for certain reasons. So that's a use case you would want to have for webhooks, right? Clear? Any questions?
Um, I had one question, Sunil.
Yep.
So for the webhook, like it's just a push message. So how user can identify or how user can know like that message successfully reached to that proper destination?
Okay. Good question. You want to know how the user will identify that it is coming from a proper destination, right? Again,
Yes.
it's an API, right? You have created an API and you have created a webhook. Now, this webhook details are only given to certain people. It's a like a hotline connection to your house. You will not publish it across the internet. Across the internet, you will always publish your API URL. Webhook URLs are only given to certain consumers or certain systems who really need to have a callback URL. You can, again, I said, if you remember, I said you can encrypt the data. TLS is possible. Now, using TLS, you can identify, right? That's one way of doing it.
Yes. Right.
So that's one way you can do identify. There are other ways as well. I mean, honestly, I've not done a lot of research on webhooks. I've just worked with webhooks for the last couple of months. But yeah, maybe we can have another detailed session on webhooks itself, just webhooks and how it can be implemented. We can dive deep in how I to identify. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. And sorry to another one question is like sometimes the flash message
Mm-hmm.
in modern days, like we are getting some unwanted spam, right? Like if it is a link or something. So that flash messages can be like most of the case we are not like wanted that flash message. So in that webhook, although it's a TLS connection in the REST call or everything, so how can we ensure user it's a secured things like there are no other like any kind of like a bug or anything there?
See, again, as I said, webhook is not totally open without any authentication. You have a bare minimum authentication there. You do have SSL, I mean rather TLS, one way, two way, the way you want. You can implement that. So again, even in a normal API, those are the ways we secure it, right? You have an authentication, you have an authorization, you have a TLS. Those are the ways we secure our APIs. Similar way, it's just that the number of opportunities or ways in which you can secure an API are way more than you secure your webhooks. So that's the reason I said webhooks should never be used to transfer any sensitive data. Period. You should never. Your webhook data should be as simple as an acknowledgement, received items, received your invoice, invoice getting processed successfully, or there is a error in your invoice file. Just text messages to just notification, for the sake of notification. That's the best use case for webhook. No sensitive information should be passed via webhooks.
Okay, got it, got it.
Right? Any other questions? Okay, I will come to the next one. All right, webhook configuration. So you guys remember, right? I created an app. So and I said that for every, I mean, every webhook behind the scenes there is an app or an API. So for the app that I created, there is a specific way you go and create a webhook URL. So go to your app. There is something called add new webhook. One sec, my mouse is not working. Okay, yeah. So webhook URL, you go and add a new webhook. Then here you select the channel for which channel you are creating this webhook. Now, whenever in Slack you're creating a webhook, it is not for all channels. You have to create a specific webhook per channel. And then your webhook URL will be given to you. This can be given to your consumer who wants to send you information via webhook. It's pretty simple. Okay, did I tell you guys one thing, that once you're work interacting with your Slack application, you should also have your middleware uh, application ready. Again, since this is a Mulesoft meetup, I'll say Mulesoft. So there should be a Mulesoft API already designed and ready to be, say, consumed. Because if you see, when I come to event subscriptions, I'm providing you a Cloud Hub URL, which means there's an application already deployed. Now, I'll come to this part. So, what is event subscription? I said that it's more of an event driven architecture, right? Now, assume that my organization does not have Teams or anything. My organization has Slack as uh, the mode of communication amongst the employees. Now there's a very common occurrence that happens in all organizations: people joining and people resigning. Now these details are very important for the HR, for the finance, and for the organization itself, right? Now, what if you have a Slack channel that is explicitly used to notify that a person X has joined this organization? You say you have a tabular form that employee name, employee ID, date of birth, location, four fields. These four fields should be entered in a database. Now it is very difficult to manually always go and um, insert the data into the database by a person. It could be prone to human errors, but you have no other option. You everybody has to insert the details in your Slack application. What you do is you create a Mulesoft application, for example, and you subscribe to the events. Now when you subscribe to the events, it is event driven subscription. Now one common problem with your connector is you have to go and poll for the channel. You have to do polling and get the data. Events is real time. Whenever somebody enters the data, hits enter or submit, the bot will trigger the message to your Mulesoft API using this request URL that you have configured over here. Now, this URL should be at minimum one way SSL. At a minimum, you can have two-way SSL. It's a bit complicated over here, but that is possible. Now, at the inception, when you are building the API and you are enabling this events, my minimum requirement is I have to have a MuleSoft implementation ready and deployed on my runtime manager, ready to receive some request from here. So when you add the request URL and save it, this application will send a challenge parameter as a HTTP post request to your MuleSoft API and wait for a response. That response should come back to the Slack API or a Slack app within 3 seconds, if I remember correctly. I think it was 2 or 3. Most probably it was 3 seconds. So it has to get back a successful response within 3 seconds. If it does not get, this URL will not be verified. Period. You have to ensure your MuleSoft application sends back the response within 3 seconds. Now, after you have enabled the event subscription, you have confirmed the request URL, you subscribe to bots. You remember I spoke about bots in the second slide, right? Now, bots will do the work on behalf of the user. Now, here you have two different types of bots. One is bots for specific events or bots on behalf of users. Now, behind the scenes, it's the same thing. I mean, there's a bot that has certain permissions. Either the bot will get triggered when there is a specific event, or a bot will say act on behalf of Suman Chatterjee whenever he wants to do something. Say Suman wants to type a general message at every morning, every day morning 8 a.m. He wants to send a message to the entire all the channels in his organization. Hey guys, good morning. It is not, a good idea for him to sit and type good morning everybody in all the channels. Rather have a bot who will do it for you. So you subscribe to the bot events. Now when you subscribe to the bot events means you give your bot specific OAuth scope or a grant. Layman term, you give it permissions. So here if you see, the permission that I've mentioned is message.channels. What does it mean? It means your sorry, your bot has the authorization or the permission to read all the messages historically in your channel. Does that mean that whenever the bot is created, it will start sending events for everything that has happened in the past? No, it will not. But it can read everything. It has read everything, all the messages in the channels that you allow it to, and it will only get triggered from the time the bot has been allowed access, right? From the time you create and allow access, after that, every time there's an event that triggers, your bot will send out an HTTPS post message to your MuleSoft API. Now, there's something called as unfurled domains as well. Again, this is something that I've not explored. It takes some time. I did not have the time for this. Maybe sometime later we can discuss this as well. Okay, now, as I said about OAuth and grants, so your bots for that will be used in your MuleSoft application have to have configured with OAuth v2. In fact, if you remember, if you guys have worked with your MuleSoft connector as well, even your connectors will need to have OAuth 2.0 configurations done in the connectors. For that, you have this OAuth token and OAuth bot token. Depending upon which token you use, is either this is subscribed or this subscribed. For the use case that we are creating today, we have subscribed for the bot token. Where is it? Okay, we have subscribed for the bot token, right? Now, coming here. Okay, how many of you have understanding of OAuth?
Yes, I have.
Okay, one, only one. Okay, two. Anybody else? So basically, whenever you're working with OAuth, uh, in short, what I would say is, in OAuth, the authorization token is not given back to the consumer. It The authorization token is sent directly back to the application that is supposed to service your request. How does it send back? It is sent back with using something called a callback URL. Now, in again, let me take a couple of minutes to explain OAuth. So basically, I have a consumer, I have a service provider, and the service provider says, I want to have OAuth authorization for my application. What do you do? First, you go and register your application to an OAuth server, wherein you define the client ID secret. You also define the permissions that should be provided in the OAuth token to access your API, and you give a callback URL. Now, using that callback URL, the OAuth server will actually send back the response to the OAuth code back to you. Now, when the service consumer wants to hit your service, it will hit your service. The service provider will redirect you to your OAuth server. Think this way: LinkedIn. A lot of us, try to log in using LinkedIn. Now, either you can log in to your LinkedIn using your username password, but then it also allows you to log in via Gmail. That's OAuth 2.0. What it does is, you click linkedin.com, click to log in. Below you will see that login using Facebook, Google. You select Google. You are redirected to Google. There you give your Google username password. You are authenticated. Once you're authenticated, Google creates a token on your behalf with the permissions that already LinkedIn has created for users who want to access LinkedIn using Google. Those things are clubbed into your OAuth token and sent back to LinkedIn through the callback URL. And since you are already a verified user of Gmail, you are also redirected to your LinkedIn page. Now, LinkedIn, within a fraction of seconds, identifies the token sent by Google, checks the validation that yes, you are a valid user, you have specific permissions, and then it allows you to access your LinkedIn homepage. So that's how your OAuth works simply. And this callback URL is the one of the most important parts of your OAuth. So you have to mention this callback URL when you are subscribing for that OAuth event, right? Then again, you give different scopes to your bot tokens, say a channel history. Again, basically, it's what are the permissions that your bot should have when you are using an operation using your Slack connector. So this slide that you see is, I was actually working with the OAuth connector as well, including the event subscription. I wanted to show both of them together to you. So I had this bot token scopes created for the connector itself. So I have the channel history, read, write, commands, and webhooks as well for the bot for it to use. Right now, coming, so if you remember, I said about the OAuth wherein your token is sent back to the URL, right? Sorry, send back to what do you call the API service provider. Now there are times when it is not automatically sent. Sometimes what happens is when you are building the API for the first time and deploying it, you have to do something called an OAuth dance. How is the OAuth dance done? Is you will request for the OAuth token. The consumer will request for the OAuth token. The OAuth provider will validate you, authorize you, or rather I should say authenticate you, authorize you, and then using the callback token, it will send back the data to your Mulesoft application. So in Mulesoft we have to do an OAuth dance manually every time we redeploy or fresh deployment of an application. Now I'll just show you. I have a small recording how it is done. Now here my Slack itself works as a OAuth service provider, so it is pretty easy for us to do over here. So if you see here in this video, I don't know if it started. Yeah, now if you see here, I am giving the URL of my Cloud Hub URL, and I say slash authorize. It redirects and it asks me what are the different permissions that are allowed for that user. And when I give allow, if you see here, there's a callback. This is the exact callback URL that I had used. So once the token got created, you see the token successfully access, I mean retrieved access, that successfully retrieved access token. It used this callback URL to send the token to my MuleSoft API. This is how you do your OAuth dance in MuleSoft when you're configuring with Slack. With this, the the PPT part comes to an end. Before I go to the demonstration, I'll want to check if you guys have any questions. Guys, any questions?
Oh, as of now, no questions here. Chat.
Okay. Where was it? Let me come here. All right. So say leave. So this is what I said, where you create your Slack app. api.slack.com. You go there, you log in with your credentials. uh, I think this is certain things are restricted for your free Slack connectivity, but if you have an enterprise Slack, most of these are available for you. So you come here, you create a new, this is exactly what I had shown you in the slide of creation of your Slack app. There are two ways. You come here, you go to your manifest, select the workspace that you want. Say I'll do this. This is the YAML that I have, right? It is everything that I want to put in at the creation time about my token, or sorry, about my app that I'm creating. Once this is done, you do next and you create the app. But I would not do that today. Rather, we can do a scratch. You give your app name and you give which workspace you want to deploy it, and create the app. So I already have a Slack app that is already created. Now when I come here, if you remember, here I was telling in this part that in sorry, where did it go? Yep. If I just zoom in the manifest, there's a lot of information that you can provide, right? Now how do I know? Suppose if today my team member says, Suman, I see that this is there, right? How do I know what are the different manifest things that can be put in? So you come down, or once you enter one of your Slack APIs, you come here, there's something called an app manifest. Now this app manifest has all the details about your app that is created. It'll have its name, its logo, its color, its definition, what permissions are allowed, what features. You see, the features, bot user is there, slash commands is there, display information is there, webhook ke liye what is there, what are the different slash commands that we are using, what is the OAuth configuration that is done, everything that you want to, that you can configure using these tabs over here. If you are pretty, hands on with Slack manifest, you just write it, you put it in the manifest while creation, boom, your API is up and running. This can be very useful when you are creating apps using automation, right? Now, after you create an app, I showed you the app details, right? So let's come to app details, basic information. So here, if you remember, the client IDs, the client secrets, the sign-in secrets, and so on and so forth. If you go down, you have your, app name, app description. I was talking about the icons, the background colors, everything is available. And this entire thing that you have over here is there in your app manifest, right? Now I have created this app. Now either I can go to each of these places one by one and, show the information, or you come here, functionality. Suppose I want to create an event subscription, you have to enable this. Now event subscriptions are one per app. You can have multiple slash commands per app, but you can only have one event subscription per app. So since it is already done for me, you can do here. So if you remember, I was telling that if this guy does not get back a response within 2 seconds or 3 seconds, it will not allow you. Let me show you this one. I'll copy this, I paste this, I say 1 2 3. See, it is trying to verify your URL did not respond to the value of the challenge within a couple of seconds, right? If I remove this, it is again verifying, but then let's see what happens when I do HTTP. Oops, sorry. See, it is not even accepting HTTP. So your event uh, receptor, or the application that is receiving your events, must send you the response within a certain period of time with the challenge parameter, right? Okay, now this is where the bots events you subscribe. I had subscribed for the channels. I can add another bot event, say message dot imhistory. So what it does is, any direct messages that I am doing in my workspace, this bot, I'm allowing it to, read that. That's the permission that I'm giving, which I'll not for now. Uh, so this is about your cancel. I'll discard changes. Okay, so this was about your events. Guys, any questions in the events part? I take that as a no. Okay. Now coming to slash commands. I said you guys can have multiple slash commands per app. So if you see, there is only one app that I'm having over here, which is slash command. Now there are multiple, slash commands that I've added. I can create one more slash command, say Goa command, and say some URL random. Slash sorry https colon com, right? Any URL you give, it will take. So it is up to you, the creator of the slash command. It depends upon you what type of URL you are giving. Obviously I know this will not get me any response, but it still accepts it. As long as it is a valid URL, it will accept it. And then you can define your short description. If you want to pass additional parameters, it will take that. Now again, escape channels and users was something I told you. Say I say add Suman. When I do this and I send, what will happen is, uh, if I escape this, my ID will not come like this. It would come as a @user. But if I do not escape, it would come as actually the username that I've put in. So this will be there in your Slack app, not here. I'm not just configuring, I'm just showing here. So this is your slash command and webhooks. Now incoming webhooks. Anybody wants to take a guess why it is incoming webhooks and not webhooks? Just a wild guess. Why would you want to have incoming webhooks rather than a webhooks? No one? Anyways, so you are creating an app. You created this app called Slack command over here, right? Now you already have an API created in your Slack. Now this one can only allow incoming webhook. Slack does not want itself to go and access a webhook. This API is allowing you to access using an incoming webhook, right? So that's why it is an incoming webhook. Now again, in incoming webhook, this is where you would create a new webhook, add one webhook over here. It will ask you for a channel name. For example, it's taking a time. Okay, so here, say I will say mule. It's searching. There's a mule meetup channel that is available. I can create a channel and I can create a webhook. Now a similar webhook I already created last time. Okay, api.slack.com. Okay, I'm here. All right. So where was I? Okay, I was working on webhooks, right? Okay, so these were the webhooks, how you create a webhook. Again, bots and permissions I showed you guys. Now, once you do this, once you've made these changes, this is just the API or application that you have created on your api.slack.com. After this, you will have to install your application in your Slack workspace. So if you see, uh, so this is my workspace, and if you see here, I have removed and I have added my application. So this, when you reinstall, it will come and reinstall in your specific channel for which you have created your Slack app. This is an important part of it, right? Your app will not work the way it is expected if you don't install for the first time, and every change that you make you don't reinstall, it will not work. That's a very important thing. With that, I come to the end of this part of the demonstration. You guys have any question over here before I move to the mule application that we created? Okay, I'll come here. So let's look at the first thing. What this flow did is, it is taking messages on a event. So there's one flow for event and connector. So if you remember here, I had enabled event subscription. So that is a HTTP listener that I have created over here, which listens on slash test. And then I'm just logging something, and if you see, this is the channel name where I'm posting. So channel number is this channel number that I have, this channel ID. So I'm trying to form a message of some information that I'm trying to send, and using my Slack connector send message, I'm posting that message on your Slack channel, right? Now in the configuration, connector configuration, if you remember, We did use the consumer ID and the consumer secrets and all those things. Forget it. I did some mistake. Hold on. Yeah. So you give the authorization URL, the callback URL, and then here in the external callback URL, you add the callback URL that you have to give. Now, again, for the demo purposes, I've done it. I've hard coded this. You should not hard code it. You will have to just keep it, in one of your properties file, and change this in your runtime manager whenever you do the new deployment, right? So this external callback URL is the URL that will also get configured over here. mm, where was this? Sorry, not here. Auth permissions. You see, this is the same configuration URL that is configured over here as well, so which will be in your runtime manager. Coming to this again, and then I just pay message something, and I log the payload. So this was a combined POC that we have created for your events as well as connector. Now the second part of the demo or the POC is where I'm combining your slash commands with your webhooks. Now obviously slash command is something that will come as an input to your mule application, which I'm listening on webhook. Again, this is just the URL that I've configured in my slash command. And then using webhook, if you see here the URL hooks.slack.com, and this is my team ID and the other configuration parameters. So using these, I'm actually sending back a response to Slack using the webhook. And what am I sending a text message posted from webhook. Now these are the two things I'll show first, what is being done, and then I'll come to the third part of it. Now let me log into Anypoint platform. Mm, 1 second. Sorry. Okay. Runtime manager. Uh, okay. Okay. So if you see here, I have a Mule Meetup application that is already available. And if we'll just go to the logs, when was the last log? Okay, something happened over here at this time. So 1713, it's pretty long back. Now, coming over here, let's do the slash command. So what is the slash command? I do this, and I do slash command, and I do enter. You see, this part of the command, message posted successfully, is only visible to the user that has sent the or triggered the slash command. This is the response that you received from your Mulesoft application. If you see here, channel this, event callback section, and so on and so forth, those are the things you got back from your Mulesoft application using your connector. So this listener, which was listening on slash test, which has been configured in your Slack application as slash commands, slash command restart job. If I go there, it's a default name that's there. Where is it? You see, it is listening on slash test. This HTTP receiver is listening on slash test, and that's configured over here. So when I hit my slash command as slash slash command over here, it actually triggered this API or this flow in my Mulesoft API, did some transformation, and then using the Slack connector itself, which has done your OAuth dance pretty much back, and send the message back to your Salesforce or your Slack channel. That's one way of doing it. Now, the second part of it, okay, let me see if my logs are there. Oh, yeah, the logs are there. Good. I was actually facing some issues with the logging yesterday. So now the second part, wherein we look at the Slack and webhook, wherein I am using the slash command, and this slash command will send the request using a webhook back to my Slack channel. Now say I give a slash webhook test, right? What am I expecting over here? I am expecting this message to be posted on my Slack channel using a webhook, right? So I enter this again. You see, instantaneously, my bot, which is the application over here, has taken the message and posted it in my Slack channel. Now, these are two important things. Now, the third part, the most interesting part for me at least, you guys will like it, is if you see over here, where is it? Yeah, okay. If you see, where is it? You remember back when I started about authentication and signing secret, I said Slack will send you a request signature. I mean, a Slack signature, right? It's an HMAC signature that is created by Slack, and there's a timestamp as well that comes in with your application. Now, you can use these two parameters to validate whether this application or this message that is coming to your application is a stale message or a replay attack, or you can validate the signature to verify or validate whether your message is coming in from your Slack or not, or Slack bot is actually sending you this message or not. Now, if you see here, I have done valid payload and HMAC validation successful, right? This is a custom message that I have done after my uh, this this HMAC validation. How did I do that? For that, there is this event trigger that is there, and then first I do is I validate whether the timestamp that is coming in your Slack request timestamp is less than 1 minute in milliseconds. Now, this time that you are getting here is in milliseconds, and if that is coming less than 1 minute, then it's a proper request. It then could be a network lag because of which the message has not come in. But if I assume that a message has come to me more than after 1 minute of its creation, then it could be a probable replay attack. I would want to discard that message, and then using the validation module, I either check whether it is true or false, and I discard the message. Now that happens when I say message valid, payload valid. So if you see here, as a valid payload, I'm logging it. Next is the HMAC validation. Now HMAC validation is again pretty simple. Again, if you see so, in your Slack signature, this is the entire HMAC signature that comes in for you. And if you remember in your API home, It's taking a long time. If you remember this part, you had a signing secret. Now, using this signing secret, what you do is you write a data weave. You write a data weave where you are creating a hash code which includes your request timestamp and your payload taken as raw. So if I come here, oh, sorry, if I come here, this is the timestamp and this entire payload. I take this payload as a raw payload using payload.raw, and then using your crypto module of your data weave, you create a binary HMAC signature, and then you validate whether this value is equal to the value of the hash code that you have created. If that is true, which validates that this message that has come to you is an authentic message coming in for Slack. Otherwise, it's a false, and then you discard the message. These are the ways you can actually validate uh, your incoming messages from Slack through your Mulesoft API. With that, I come to the end of this session. I'll stop sharing, and if you guys have any question, feel free to ask. No questions? All right then.
Anybody have any questions, please ask to Suman so he can answer that. I guess we take as no.
Yep.
Thank you, Suman. Thank you so much for this uh, beautiful topic you chose, and you explained very well, actually, very neatly, and from basic to advanced, you explained very nicely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend. See you sometime next time.
Yeah, thank you, Gaurav,
Bye
for
bye.
thank you all. Thank you, Simran.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, Ranga. Hi, Gaurav.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, where we need to upload this recording? 1 minute, let me stop.
Mhm.